Awesome. Well, welcome to the Plant Wisdom Podcast, Audrey.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk with you today. So, you're based in Quebec and probably very cold there right now.
Correct.
And it's been great too to connect since, I speak French and we speak French together. So, I'm excited to dive in here. So, for my listener who doesn't know the work that you do, can you walk us through, how you got started with coaching and the type of coaching that you do?
Of course. So, basically, the story started when I was 13 years old, and I started to have huge issues with my period. And the only option that I was given was to be put on the pill. And I didn't know better, and it was fine. It kind of saved me in a way. But I started to notice that my health was going worse and worse and worse, and I didn't know why. And I was such a bubbly young girl, but suddenly I got depressed, and I would gain the weight, and I was always bloated, and there was nothing I could do that would fix anything. And eventually I learned about like the adverse effects of the pill, and I just thought, I'm gonna lose my fertility, so I'm just gonna cut the pill, and I cold turkey, I just stopped it. Um, and most of the problems, like my depression completely went away. And back then I didn't make the link. I only made it later on when I
Mhm.
learned more about it, and I was like, what? But the PMS, the problem, the period issues were kind of not the same, but still there. And I just thought, well, I guess I have to suffer through it, right? Because I'm a woman and I don't want to get back on the pill. So I just thought, I'll just be like any other woman and I'll just suffer in silence. Um, but things started to get worse yet again. And I started to be super exhausted, and the weight came back and I could not lose it. And I was, trying to exercise more and eat less and all of these things, and nothing worked until someday somebody was like, oh, by the way, PMS symptoms is not normal. It's actually an indication of hormonal imbalance. And I was like, what? And so I dug deep into that, and my whole life completely transformed. So I applied, you know, basically holistic healthcare to my health, and it was like night and day. Suddenly I started to gain my energy, I lost the weight, and my period was like pain free. It was nice. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's huge. And at that time I was also starting to study to be a health coach. And so during my studies I always had that feed in the hormonal world, and I was always like, what happened to me is, it was so incredible. And I didn't know any of that, like prior to starting as a health coach. Well, a little prior. I didn't know, at school, nobody taught me any of that. And I just thought, I have to teach that. I have to help other women go through the same transformation that I did. So I focused my health coaching studies in that.
That's beautiful. And I heard that too recently. I think in the last year that when you have PMS, that means that you don't have a normal cycle, but that feels so normalized that these are just the kind of symptoms you experience. And it's like, no, if you were healthy, you wouldn't have all that pain, all the weight gain. And you need to find balance to balance that out. So
Absolutely.
so you focused your studies in that. And I've talked to you about this, about the different seasons of the cycle, the woman's menstrual cycle. And I think it's so beautiful on both physical level and emotional level, like all the changes we go through. I would love to hear from you, your take on that and what you walk your clients through those seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very simple, actually. We make it seem very complicated, but as a woman, our brain structure changes in the course of a month. And it's a huge change. It's not like a little change, it's like 20% change. So that's huge. And obviously, if your brain is 20% different in a week than it was the other week, obviously the whole body is going to react and behave differently. And that includes, digestion, it includes thinking patterns, it includes metabolism and hunger and all of these things. And since the hormones, they kind of react to how the brain behaves, the brain is sending signals and the hormones behave accordingly. The importance is really to know how is your brain behaving in every phase of your cycle. That way you don't feel so lost and you don't feel like so confused as to why are things so different. Why was I not hungry last week and now I'm like so hungry I want to eat everything, right? It's normal. It's because your brain is different. And
Right.
so basically there are four seasons, I call them, the phases. And to make it easy, because some of the terms are a little complicated, I speak to them as seasons. So the first phase is the follicular phase, and that's like the spring. That's when your hormones kind of like light up and start rising, and everything's beautiful. And then you get to the ovulation, which is the summer. And that's why your body temperature is at its highest. That's why we call it the summer. And you're super social, and you crave raw fruit. So it's really the summer. And then you get into the fall, and that's usually where the issues start happening because that's when the hormones are declining and it's more of an inward focused change. It's more of a calming, grounding season. And really picture the fall, and this is what it feels like inside of your body. And in the fall, that's when you get sick. That's when you catch a cold. It's the same thing. That's why PMS usually happens in that week. And then you get to the period, which is your winter. That's when your temperature is coldest and it's more of a rest phase, and all of that.
Yeah, that's so helpful to know all those different phases and how we feel emotionally. And for sure, when you are on your cycle, and at least for me, it's like you don't want to talk to anyone. You want to like hibernate. And I don't know if you've heard this. I learned this in the last year. Like your face changes during the week of your cycle. Have you heard of this?
Your
Um,
face? What do you mean?
so apparently, this is like a very spiritual learning that I recently found out. So basically, women during that phase when you have your cycle, you don't want like to be with a man sexually
Mm.
in that way. So apparently your face like changes in a way that makes you not like as attractive, but I've actually
What?
noticed it. Like I'm like, whoa, why do I look so different? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's actually, I really like it. And the
Yeah.
opposite is true. During your ovulation, you're super magnetic. And
Yeah.
your skin is glowing, your hair is like thicker. Yeah. And like also, not only does your physical appearance change, but your communication skills change. And
Yes.
during ovulation, when you're like magnetic and, hot, you are able to communicate so clearly what you want and on any topic. It doesn't have to be with a man. It's like on any topic, you're so clear communication. While in your period, it's more of a reflection phase. And it's
Mhm.
very interesting because your left side of the brain and your right side of the brain, this is when they are the most connected to each other. So your outward communication is not as intense, but your inward communication is so on point. So like this is
Wow.
your moment. Yeah.
Wow. That is very cool.
It's amazing what the brain does, what us women can experience. This is when, this
Yeah.
phase is so good for evaluation and processing and thinking like, am I happy in life? Or does this work? Does this project work? Do it in your period because it's such a great time for inward thinking and inside bubbling.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep that in mind when I'm doing like my writing. And I had a friend growing up who always knew when I was on my cycle because she's like,
Mm.
you're getting quiet again. Like you go in this kind of like inner like retreat in your world. And so I thought that was always, a funny instance of seeing that happen, like other people noticing it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love all this. Like, we don't really focus on that too. And that's what we've talked about, like nurturing our cycle. And what's interesting about you and how we're going to connect in the future, which I'll talk about on this podcast, is you also use herbal remedies and the healing tools of plants and essential oils. So, do you want to share your recommendations? I know you've shared a few with me of the oils to use during like each phase, if you had an idea of one to use maybe in the week of your cycle or in the summer phase.
Yes, good, good question. So yes, and the reason I use herb and essential oils is because the two main places in your body that are mm, active when it comes to your hormones is the liver and your adrenal glands. And those two like working super hard. And these two really thrive on natural remedies and herbs and essential oils. So for the liver, any oil that helps with the detoxification. And so, any um, like tree scents.
Lemongrass.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, lemongrass is
Yeah.
amazing. Yes.
The liver.
Um, any tree like black spruce or cedarwood or all of these are amazing for your liver, for your estrogen levels. Um, Plants like uh, oh, I only have the words in French. Shoot,
You can
that
share it.
flat.
I can translate.
I don't know if you know the pissenlit, the little yellow flower.
Oh, I know it in French. I know what you're saying now. And it's like, I don't even know if that does translate. Is it, wow.
Can
That's funny. It's like, I recognize that word as well. I'll
well,
think
anyways,
more on that.
artichokes are amazing for your
Oh,
liver. I'm like pulling my phone right now to see the translation.
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so, for those are for the liver, but then for the adrenal glands, anything that is soothing, that helps to calm down, that will reduce the inflammation.
Yeah.
So, frankincense is an amazing
Yes.
oil. Clary sage,
Yeah.
so good for hormone regulation. And again, the woods scents, so beautiful. And then as for tea, raspberry leaf tea is
I like
really,
that.
really good for hormonal regulation, and turmeric.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is so interesting. Yeah. And I'll share the oils that I know about too, but I feel like you have a different perspective too. Like I wouldn't ever think of turmeric
Mm-hmm.
to use for that. That's very helpful. Some of the ones that come to mind for me for specific issues is I knew you talked about clary sage. Like if there's
Mm-hmm.
one oil to help you as a woman, it's clary sage, hands down.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, in every area of your hormonal health, your menstrual health. I wrote a blog on feminine support, and I have all the different areas you need support in, and clary sage falls under every single one.
Oh, yeah. It's
So that oil is your go-to for hormone balance. The one thing is you don't want to use it when you're pregnant. It will induce labor. So maybe that's your goal and you're almost ready to go. But if you're not, that's the only part. But yeah, so those are some, and you shared that tip with me that I actually started this week of taking doTERRA's phytoestrogen
yes.
complex. Yeah,
So good.
so
I'm so
good.
proud of
So
you.
I know I was taking it, excuse me, the wrong way. Well, not the wrong way, but not in the best way. So basically, I was taking this phytoestrogen supplement that's completely plant based. I was only taking it during the week of my cycle. And then I talked to Audrey, and you told me the best thing to do is actually take it the week after your cycle because you've just lost a lot of blood and this will like replenish the nutrients. And I've been doing that, and I've definitely noticed a difference. Like, the
Mm,
week after, you're kind of tired still a little bit, like you're still like I felt like I really bounced back just this week from starting that. So that's a great tip
yeah.
for anyone too.
Yeah. And since after your period, that's when your estrogen levels are rising, to give them that little extra boost of making sure they're in the right amounts. That's awesome. So good
Yes,
job.
I know it's such a good hack. So we both obviously we use doTERRA essential oils and their products, and they have a women's kit which is great. And the women's kit I believe is geared more towards women that are older because it has like bone health, has a bone health supplement, bone nutrient, and then it has the phytoestrogen complex, which I'm taking, and then the clary calm, which this is actually like my favorite way of using clary sage, because clary sage is a very, very strong smell, kind of
Sure.
like sage in general. But the clary calm, it's still pretty strong, but I only use it the week of my cycle. And it has like flowers mixed in with the clary sage, and I rub that on my lower abdomen, and that seriously has helped with my PMS like mood swings. For me, I've noticed that at first I wasn't so crazy about the smell, so that's why I was like a little
Mm-hmm.
turned off. But now it's just like I have to do it, and I actually like start enjoying it and look at it as a way to also support myself during my cycle and have that tool to turn to. So that's another really, ladies, you want this blend for support with that.
The rose oil is also very, very good for us
Yes.
women and PMS and all of that.
Yes, it's actually so interesting. So, like the feminine cycle supporting oils are also like very feminine in nature. And I know we've talked about this. Like, it's
Yeah.
very, very spot on that, rose is a feminine supporting oil with hormones. Ylang ylang, which has the benefits of like healthy libido. There are all these very like feminine floral smells. Jasmine for healthy uterus. Like, jasmine might be one of my all-time favorite
So
oils.
it smells so good. I love
So
it.
good. It's
Yeah.
intoxicating.
Mhm.
And there's also, what else is very feminine? doTERRA has the Whisper blend, which is like a perfume blend for women, but I've heard um, from clients that they use that to balance hormones as well. And that one has like vanilla in it and cocoa, and it's very like warm and sensual. So it's interesting that those are the smells that support feminine hormones too. Yeah, I love that.
By the way, dandelion is the flower.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry about that.
Of
I got
course.
the
It's
word
it's almost
completely.
too easy.
I know. Oh, but now we know
Oh,
dandelion.
okay. So do you mean like dandelion tea as a way to take that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can add what I do in my teas, I add a drop or two of essential oils. And so it's like tripling, the support. So it's
Yes.
however, disclaimer, if you do take the dandelion tea, you will go pee after that. So don't take it before a special event where you can't go to the bathroom, or like right before you go to bed, because you
Yeah.
will wake up in the morning.
Very
Especially
good
with
to
essential
know.
oils, like the effect is going to be multiplied. It's very
Okay.
good that you go to the bathroom right after, but be aware that you will go pee.
Yes. Okay, that is very good to know. And I also wanted to ask you, is dandelion tea an issue if you have allergies? Because I've heard so many health benefits, but then something tells me if I'm eating the flowers that give allergies, like, is that an issue that you've heard of?
I mean, obviously, I would always advise to go to your doctor and make sure, like
Hmm.
always make sure. I have never heard of the allergies getting bad with it because it's not strong enough. It's not like chemically multiplied. So,
Right.
from what I know, from my experience, it's not
Yeah.
strong enough to provoke allergies. So, you can have like, allergies usually and drink that tea and not be affected at all.
Right.
But some of you might. So,
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before, though. So, I feel like it's safe to say it's okay, but always, check with the doctor and make sure it's not.
That's good advice. Yeah. I feel like I want to try that too because I've seen so many of the health benefits as well. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm doing the phytoestrogen after my cycle, Clary Calm. I also learned, I don't know if you know a lot about yarrow palm. I actually have it right here. It's yarrow and pomegranate oil.
Oh, yum.
Yes, and I think pomegranate is supposed to be very good for
It's also
feminine
very
health.
feminine. Surprise.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Pomegranate. Actually, if we could have more pomegranates during our period or like the week before, we would
Hmm.
be a bit happier.
That is good to know. Yeah. So this one, I believe, so Yarrow Palm, I actually use it for skin support. Like I use it in my face oil every night for glowing skin. And what I didn't know about it though is that it has those hormone balancing elements in it as well. So obviously a lot of the oils are like multi-use in that sense, but I just thought that was so
Absolutely.
interesting too. That is obviously a feminine supporting oil. So you talked about the liver support to regulate estrogens and the adrenal support as well, which for me, and I think as women in general, in our society currently, we can be very prone to burnout. And I've noticed myself when I have burned out or I'm like approaching burnout, like, and it's my cycle, that's when I have a really, really big mood swing as well.
Yeah.
Do you notice that in your clients as well?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Actually, it's directly linked. Stress hormones and sex hormones are like together. They move together. And if your stress hormones are all over the place, 100% your sex hormones will be all over the place. And actually, the progesterone, which is another very important hormone for a healthy period and a calm mind, right? It's made in small quantities in the adrenal glands. And that's the main reason why menopause is so hard for a lot of women, is because suddenly their ovulation is not providing enough progesterone for them. And so they have to rely on the adrenal glands, which have been so high on making stress hormones that they have no clue how to make any progesterone. And so you end up with no progesterone, with very little, and you end up with all of these issues with menopause and even with your period. That could be like one of the main thing. But so when you're producing a lot of stress, you're not producing progesterone, which
Mm,
is the hormone that you need for a healthy period
right.
and a healthy
Wow.
life, actually, because it impacts your whole body. But yeah.
Wow. That is actually good to have that understanding now and know sometimes when you understand something, you want to prevent it more, at least for me. So, yeah, for the burnout, when I feel that coming on, obviously I start taking breaks, things like that. But the oils that I mix, I make a internal capsule, which is safe to do with the doTERRA oils. They're medical grade. I use basil and
Mm-hmm.
rosemary and frankincense. I put a few drops of
Yes,
each, and I do
beautiful.
that like twice a day. And so that's a good adrenal support. You could also put it on your lower back, like just put basil on there over
Yes.
your adrenals, right where they're located. Yeah, I think that's like the most. I don't really have PMS that much. Like I'll have a few days of my cycle, even it's not long,
Good.
but it's in those times where I'm more prone to stress, where I'm like, why
Yeah.
am I crying for no reason?
Mm-hmm.
It comes out of nowhere and it's like, it's scary.
Yeah, it is. It really it feels so out of your control, right? You feel like you suddenly lose control of your body and your mood.
Hmm.
It's really not fun, but it's totally not necessary. And what happens then is a result of what's been happening the whole month. But it's like it's exactly like I said, it's the fall. This is when you get sick. You might have been underdressing the whole spring or eating the wrong food the whole summer. You're gonna pay for it in the fall.
Yes. Wow. That's a good point. So I want to focus on that as well with your clients. I know you talked about you went off the pill. And now, do you coach clients in a way where you're working with whatever they have? There's so many options now for birth control. What are your suggestions? Do you find it's better, more natural? I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, it actually, my perspective is to go with what feels comfortable because there's
Mhm.
so many options. And when we touch on contraception, we also touch on a very ethical piece, because some people they will say the baby is not a human being until, it is here. And so people will say, no, it's already, alive when it's conceived. So it highly depends, because all of the methods, will have different impact on different times. You could have natural ways of abort the baby in a way, depending on how you see it. So what I do more in that aspect is to find out, where are you comfortable? How do you feel about this? And the best key is actually to really know your cycle and to know when you can get pregnant. Because when you know that window, it is so much easier, like to choose an option that will fit for only your 5 days or your 3 days that you can actually get pregnant, and not worry about it for the rest of the month.
Right. Yeah, I love that approach too, because everyone is different. And I'll just share my experience because it's sort of like yours. I mean, not to that extreme, but I did, use birth control, the pill, for over 10 years. And then once I started being on this journey of taking care of myself and switching to more natural, supplements and things like that, then I stopped just to see, like, what am I going to be like without this? Like, I basically had a lot of issues with anxiety, that I was trying to find natural ways to take care of because I was already taking medication and that wasn't working. And I found that my mood changed so much for the better. So that was just my experience, that I just felt like it was always in the background, um, something there, that I wasn't going through this natural cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really the key. To know your natural cycle is to be able to handle it. Like, if you know
Mhm.
how it works, then you know what to do and when to do it.
Yes. Yeah. I would definitely want to focus more on journaling during my cycle, being more aware of that, and even tracking it. Like, I've tried tracking it and not really sticking with it. Do you have any recommendations for tools to do that?
So the most efficient way to track your cycle, and to be the most precise way to know, is to take your temperature, your basal temperature. I think that's how you say it. So right next to my bed, actually, there's a. I'm not gonna go get it, but there's this little thermometer, and I wake up at 6:45. So every day, as soon as I wake up, I will take it, put it in my mouth, and it takes like 30 seconds to catch my temperature, and it's very accurate. So every day, I will write down what temperature, and it will stay fairly consistent. And then suddenly there's a spike, and then it stays high, and then it starts to go down. And this is how you know I'm in my follicular, I'm ovulating, I'm decreasing my hormones, so I'm in my fall until I bleed, which is like when it's the lowest temperature. So your body temperature is your best indication of your cycle, and that's when you know exactly. Like, actually, you will know the day after you ovulate, but you're gonna take your temperature, and then suddenly it's gonna be like higher, and you're gonna know yesterday was my ovulation day, and I will be fertile for the time that my temperature stays high.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense because last week was my cycle, and I think this is a good tip anyway, since a lot of people are taking their temperature for COVID purposes,
Mm-hmm.
and as I was, and I noticed my temperature was low. Like,
Yeah.
every day last week it was like 97, and that's when I was on my cycle, and I was like, whoa, why is it so low?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And
Wow.
they have thermometers especially for that, because you need it to be slightly more precise than a normal one, so it's a
Oh,
basal
okay.
one.
Got it.
Um, because the normal one will just kind of get the whole temperature, but the basal one will really go to the core, and that's going to be really precise and like tell you what it's like. And some of them, like, they have the memory, so I write it down, but sometimes you just don't have it. You're like, no, I
Right.
don't want to. So you can just store it in the memory, and then after that, you kind of get to see how much. So it's the best tool there is. It's the most precise, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great idea. Okay, I'm gonna start doing that as well. I also like want to share about just our cycle in general, and I shared this when we first met at 6 degrees, how something that changed for me in my cycle was thinking of it in a different way, in a positive way. And
Mhm.
in our culture and our society, there's this whole narrative of, oh no, like it's PMS week, I'm in the worst mood, I'm gonna take it out on everyone, then, I just can't, I don't wanna, like, it's like a dreading feeling. And I noticed that when I thought that way, I would have a worse experience. Obviously, thoughts are things, and then that was impacting that. And then I read the book, the life changing book by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And for PMS, she writes an affirmation to say so that you have, an easy experience during your cycle. And the affirmation is, I now take charge of my mind and my life. I am a powerful, dynamic woman. Every part of my body functions perfectly. I love me. And that's what I say to
Beautiful.
myself. Yeah. And I just accept it. Like, this is part of me. This is natural. This is normal. And I don't anticipate it. And now I really don't have any pain at all.
That's such a huge thing. And you know how I was saying like the brain impacts your hormones? So obviously the way that you think will tell your body how to react. The way that you see your body is basically dictating how your body will react. That's such a huge part of it. Like to view your period instead of as a dreading thing, more of
Mm-hmm.
like the result of your most feminine and
Right.
something that is to be taken care of instead of, like try to push to the side and like, please be quiet. The more we do like, please be quiet, the more it's gonna scream louder and louder and in ways we don't want to hear it, right? But when we start looking at it at, well, my body is not a mistake. Like, I'm not sick, I'm not a problem. It's not because I'm a woman that I have issues. It's because something has been out of sync with my biology, with who I really am, and that needs attention. And when you get back in alignment, suddenly your body's like, here's a pain-free period, here's a fun period, here's to you seeing your blood and not freaking out, and
Right.
feeling great about it.
Yes. Wow. I love that. It's so true. And I know in certain cultures, and I wanted to see if you knew anything about this, but I think I've read somewhere in the last few years that there's cultures where women, when it's their cycle, they just like they take time off. It's like normal to do that. Have you heard anything around that?
Many things. In a lot of cultures, in your uh, period week, women get together, and it's like a femininity ceremony where we kind of stick together. We uplift each other. We stick together. And when a girl has her first period, the woman will take her away, and they will celebrate her femininity. And it's an event to be celebrated. It's an event to be like, woohoo! It's not that now you can bury children. It's that now you're really experiencing the fullness of being a woman, and it's so different than what it was before and what it means to be a man. That has nothing to do with that. It's you are now experiencing femininity to a whole new degree, and it is worth celebrating. And for a lot of cultures, this is how they view the period. The first period is something to be celebrated. And when they get to period, they'll get together and just have like this girly moment where it's less work and more. I mean, still obviously we cook and all of the normal work, um, but as a woman collective.
That's beautiful. I hope that evolves here in the US at least, because that would be amazing to just have it out in the open. I think it's so nice that we're talking about it just in general. Like, it's not something that I felt was normalized talking about it growing up, like obviously with your friends, but it was kind of like this awkward thing, like when it happened, and I think just celebrating it like that would be so much more normalized. And I even have colleagues who are coaches and have their own businesses, and they plan to take time off during their
Yeah.
period. And I think that's also such a good idea as well, to really honor that
Mhm.
first day at least.
Yeah, or whatever works for you. Like, because you're definitely still able to do what you want to do during
Hmm.
that time. It's just
Yeah.
sometimes we need that acknowledgement that my period is something to be celebrated, and
Yeah.
I deserve to pay attention to my body, instead of ignoring it.
Yes. I don't know if you're familiar with Rising Woman, I think it's called. She's on Instagram. I could be saying it the wrong way. I'll have to look it up after. But she talks about, like, when she has her cycle, she gets red sheets for her bed, and I want to start doing that. She wears like red underwear, like, and just really like embraces it fully.
Yes,
Yeah, I think that's
that's
a beautiful.
awesome.
Hmm.
I put flowers around my workspace in my period.
I love that. What kind of flowers?
Any that I can find. any, of, any of them. Like during some periods when everything was on lockdown, I would just like have pictures or, you know,
Yeah.
fake flowers. But just to have that little femininity side of it and be like,
Yes.
I'm in my period. This is a special time.
Yeah, that's so cool. And do you have any recommendations from like a sustainability perspective of, managing our cycle? I'm always curious. I've tried using cups and it's just not working for me. So I'd love to know, like, is that something that you work on with clients as well?
So yeah, we talk about um obviously I'm huge on sustainability and I'm always looking for it. And
Yeah.
that is something I've heard a lot. And for myself as well, the cup is not something I'm so comfortable with, or it doesn't just work exactly. So I personally
Yeah.
use period underwear,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
I really really like them. But there's a sustainable option for literally any way of having it. So
Yes.
if you're a tampon girl, you can have those like eco-friendly tampons, and especially woman-friendly tampons, where when you put it on, you're not inducing some, you know, chemically full things,
Right.
but it's this natural, healthy thing where you can feel safe putting it in and you can feel safe throwing it out. For pads, there's some sustainable ones that you can reuse, and you just wash them with cold water,
Oh,
and
wow.
at the end, and like they come in all shapes and all colors and different types of fabric. So depending on what you prefer, I really like the underwear.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I feel like I'm wearing normal underwear, and yeah, it feels very comfortable, and I didn't have any issues so far, so I'm
Yeah,
happy
that's
with
good to
it.
know.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I've looked at those and I thought, how does that work? And so I just haven't, but I'm always just conscious of that, since it's something that, so many women are doing on a monthly basis. And I wish there was more education around that as well.
Me too. I wish. I wish.
I know that doTERRA has, in their Healing Hands, which is their nonprofit arm, I don't know if you've heard of this, but they have Days for Girls. And basically, it's in developing countries, like Kenya is one of them, where they go into schools and teach girls how to manage their cycle, and they give them like little packs of, like, pads, things like that, and they give them these little bracelets to like track their cycle. I'm like, I
Oh,
want
that's
this.
awesome. That's awme. Yeah,
I
you should have
know.
one. We should have one of those
I
bracelets
know.
because like I love this idea. This is awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Taking notes here.
Right? I'm like, I need to look into like going there and getting some. Yeah, I think that just should just be taught in school, like normally like that. And I think it's beautiful that, doTERRA is doing that, and when you buy a bottle of oil, it's going towards that. I feel like they're very lucky to have that. I would love to have that in developed countries as well. I think, we have our parents, but just having it just normalized, I think
Yeah,
would be so nice.
I agree. I
Yeah.
so agree.
And so we're going to teach a workshop together in February called Nourishing the Feminine Phases. And I'm very excited for that because essentially what we talked about today, we're going to go through each of the cycles. So Audrey gave an overview of the phases that we go through, and I shared a little bit about the oils you want to start with, but we're going to do a deep dive into nourishing each phase and the actions you want to take during that. And that will be February 17th. So look out for more info about that. But in my last few questions here, I want to ask you what's next for a spotless girl?
Oh, so many things. So right now, there's this new program called the No Stress PMS. Um, and I've been working on it for a while now. I'm like, now I still have my beta clients, but it's going so well. So I'm soon going to launch it for the full price, and I'm very excited about it. So I'm going to be focusing a lot of time on that and making that available to as many people as possible, and making it always better and always deeper. And yeah, I think that's going to be the next main focus. But I'm also planning on inviting more specialized people for my year-long clients who can get some more knowledge from different areas that kind of support that, like having someone talk only about stress management, and having someone talk only about fitness and sport, and as an authority in that field to really support what they've been learning and what they're trying to put into practice.
I love that. Is No Stress PMS, is that a type of group program that you're running?
It's a coaching program. It's
Okay.
probably slowly gonna turn into a group. There's a community with it anyways, but it's I'm giving you access to my modules where I teach you about your cycle, and I teach you the holistic approach to it, and then I coach you on it. So that's more of the gist of it.
Okay, that's very cool. I think that's so needed now, especially as it's part of like a spiritual practice. And this is what we talked about too, right? Like it's very
Absolutely.
spiritual to be in tune with our cycle. And that's what your background is in, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And actually I'm still pursuing that because I want to get that. But yeah, I'm currently doing a bachelor in biblical studies.
Wow, that's very
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah,
Do you
because I want
see
to
any
study.
overlap with that and your coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I see very deep overlaps. You know, there is no such thing as a separation between your spirit, your soul, and your body. And touching one means touching the other. And I see that in myself, and I see that in my clients, and I see that in my studies. And so when we talk about the biological facts of you as a woman, we are automatically touching about the spirituality of you being a woman and the emotional part that comes with it. And so yeah, it's really great to be able to explore that, and obviously, always as much as what the person is willing to go to, um, but it's always connected, and there's always some kind of healing that needs to happen when you have issues with your hormonal cycle.
Yes. Yes, like the deeper underlying reason
Mm-hmm.
emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Like there's so many things that we learn that being a woman is just a little bit less. It's just a little bit shameful. And for example, for me, um, doing those biblical studies, I realized that I have been carrying this idea that even though in my mouth I would not say it, in my soul I had thought that maybe God liked men more than women, or he made them better, or like they had less pain to deal with. And diving into that spirituality made me realize, oh my, that is not true. But I've been taking that, and my body has been reacting to that. And to kind of see, like, okay, some of the changes that I need to make physically, they're directly linked to what my belief systems are.
Right.
So it's a very deep
Wow.
journey, but it's
Wow.
beautiful. It's so liberating.
Yes. And you're definitely not the only one that's felt like that. And I think all these, um, feminine issues, I guess, on the physical side that I've seen in recent years, like endometriosis, I've seen just so much. I've heard of people having that. What's the other one that starts with a P?
PCOS.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's something in the last few years that has even just cropped up even more. Um, and so that's interesting to look at it that way. Like probably a lot of people feel in a sense like not fully owning that they're a woman or not feeling enough in that sense. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Or
it's a deeper healing.
yeah, they've been taught that it's shameful.
Right.
Like there's this kind of shame around the period, and I get it. Like it's not that we are ashamed of ourselves; it's we've been taught that don't talk about your period, it's gross.
Yeah.
And that has a lot of impact on the way that you see your body.
Hmm.
So, and
Yeah.
obviously the way that you see your body leads to the way you treat it.
Right. Right. Yes, that's so beautiful. And so that's like the deeper healing, that you provide your clients and that we'll be diving deep into our workshop, which I'm very excited and I love, this combination of spirituality and the plants and the essential oils, like they are all here to support us. The spirit, our connection to that is here to support us and we can be supported as women and supported by you as their coach. So I'm very excited for that and just want to say thank you for coming on the Plant Wisdom podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was so much fun to talk to you. I love every time that we connect.
Me too. Me too. We'll be connecting again soon.
Yes.